Hello and welcome back to the When You're Podcast, the podcast for when you're doing anything. Today we're talking about when you're watching Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. This movie is absolutely fantastic. It was so much fun. It's a great action thrill. It's a great action movie. It's a great popcorn movie. It's just a great movie in general. I think they do such an amazing job throughout this movie. I'm a fan of the Mission Impossible movies. I think it's absolutely cool what they do stunt-wise with these movies, action-wise, story-wise. The way that they've been able to up the ante every single time when they do these movies is absolutely incredible. I think it's just so cool, and I really like seeing that form of that kind of movie. You know, I think they do such an incredible job with it. Obviously, Tom Cruise does some crazy stunts in this movie, and the rest of the cast is back. So, but what I really like about this movie is they give a satisfying ending without feeling like I'm left on a cliffhanger. It just feels like there's still a chunk of story left to do. There's always the next part, which is I feel like they end the movie perfectly, which I kind of felt a little bit off I'm not saying I don't like. I'm just saying that like the thing I don't like about part 1 and part 2 stories anymore is the fact that they leave you on the cliffhanger and you're like, man, now I have to wait this chunk of time to get the rest of the story, and I don't like that. I like a complete story, and then after that, if there's more to tell, there's more to tell. You know what I mean? And in this movie, they give a premise in which the first goal is this thing, and then after this, there's still more to tell. But as soon as you get this piece done, it's like that's a good piece of the story, completed, good and completed and done. So I really like that aspect to it, and it was a really satisfying ending, and it didn't leave me on like a cliffhanger. It just left me with, okay, now there's the next part. There's more to do. There's another step. There's something else that we have to accomplish here, and because of that, I felt like it satisfied the ending for me, and it was really good. This movie is so good. It definitely go watch it if you haven't seen it yet. It's still in theaters. I might go watch it again. It was just that good, and maybe I missed something, or there were some details, or just to enjoy the action again and to really fully grasp the whole story. But if you haven't watched it yet, spoilers for the movie, and maybe spoilers for the other movies as well, which I also recommend watching. And this movie also does a great job of being a solo movie without having to explain any of the other past ones. So it wasn't like they do a good job of like kind of hand-holding you through kind of some of the tropes that they go through and the characters without having to like fully explain who they are and what they do. It's just you kind of like, as you watch, you kind of understand, okay, this person's on the computer, these people hack, this person does the action in the field, they have to do this. Like everything kind of handles it for you, and you don't have to watch any of the previous movies to kind of understand that, but definitely go watch the other movies as well, because they're just as good. The first and the second Mission Impossible movie, I'm not going to say they're not as good as obviously this last one, but like, I feel like, you kind of get an understanding of it, maybe like watch a few clips of it, maybe watch some of the iconic scenes and whatnot. I don't know if you necessarily have to watch it all, but if you want to, those two are definitely, those two films are definitely good. You can watch those, and maybe you should. But I think if you're gonna like watch the series, maybe you should watch the third one first, and then all the way up until this one, if you want. And maybe I'll talk about some of those other movies, kind of working back, or maybe building up to part 2, because I don't know. I think part 2 is coming out next year or in 2 more years, but whatever. Anyways, this movie starts off not with Tom Cruise, not with Ethan Hunt. It starts off in a submarine some years ago, I think, or actually in present day, I believe. So it opens in a submarine, and it's kind of like this. You see these men in the submarine. They're obviously some sort of military, army, something like that. But they're down there, and that's when we kind of get introduced to kind of like what we're going to be dealing with, the kind of threat that we're going to be facing. And so it starts off in there, and there's just a lot of dialogue back and forth, trying to understand what's going on, what's happening. And like, you're like, who's the bad guy? How's it starting off, you know? And that kind of just opens up the threat and the bad things that can happen, or, you know, that does happen when this thing takes over, or the threat is upon us. And then immediately we get another scene, also without Tom Cruise, without Ethan Hunt. We get a beginning scene we kind of do. We get like an opening scene of like Tom Cruise getting like a file of some sort, or like a package maybe. And anyways, that part was really, really small. It wasn't like a huge scene, or like really, really huge or important. It was just kind of like maybe like a small backstory a little bit, or whatever. But anyways, we get to another scene that also doesn't really involve Tom Cruise or Ethan Hunt. It involves the high-ranking officials in, like, I don't know, our government system, and like the military, CIA, FBI, whatever, right? And they're all talking about the IMF. They're all talking about the central point. The focus of this movie is going to be about these two keys, and they're two halves of a whole. So one key and another key fit together perfectly to make one whole key, and this key gives you command of some sort of AI technology. That's what we're dealing with here. It's an AI villain. So we're dealing with computers. We're dealing with artificial intelligence, and with it, we can either control it and use it to like beat our enemies, kill our enemies, do whatever we can. You know, it's that good. It's if under the right control. If not under their control and under somebody else's control, well, you're screwed, right? So it's a battle to get it. Who's going to get it first? And then that's when we kind of see Ethan Hunt in like action for the first time in the movie, but it's not really him. It's like he's in disguise. Obviously, he's in a mask. But he gets into the meeting that they're all talking about Ethan Hunt, and they're talking about the keys and the mission and all that stuff. And essentially, it was just Ethan Hunt infiltrating this meeting, him knocking out everybody with like a gas, and then staying alive with staying awake, or having a discussion with the person in charge of the IMF, or the person like overseeing it, I guess. And they kind of talk about like what they want to do with the AI, and Ethan is like, I want to kill it, you know, I don't want any part of it, or whatever. So immediately we understand that the keys were taken. The keys were taken by Ilsa Faust, who was in the previous 3 movies, I think. No, 2 movies. She was in Rogue Nation and Fallout. So she was in those previous 2 movies, and now she's in possession of one of the keys. And the other key is held by a buyer, and they're going to do an exchange to buy the other key. So essentially that's what's going on. But Ilsa has the key right now, and she's hiding out in the desert somewhere. So immediately Ethan Hunt goes after Ilsa. He has to go get the key. And as soon as he gets the key, that's when he has to meet up with the buyer and do all of that stuff. But they're not alone. They're being hunted down by the CIA, or the American government, essentially. Some feds, in another word. They're being hunted down by them. But they kind of like evade and avoid them by doing facial recognition on the computer software that they use to like identify Ethan Hunt, and they're just like changing it up completely. And that's when we get introduced to Haley Atwell's character, Grace. And oh my goodness. Dude, Haley Atwell, I mean, she is gorgeous beyond belief. I mean, I had a huge crush on her from watching Captain America, and now to see her doing some real action. I mean, you know, she was kind of doing some action. She kind of did some cool stuff in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, but in this movie, man, she's very cunning, very smart. She has great dialogue. She's very witty. I just really liked her in this movie, and yeah, dude, she's just, ooh, boy. Okay, anyways, we introduced her character, and we see like a bit of back and forth between her and Ethan Hunt, and they're going throughout the airport trying to get the key, because initially Haley Atwell, Grace, she takes it, and then Ethan has to tag her and get the other key back, and then they're being hunted by the American government. So it's a whole back and forth between them in the airport. And Ethan gets a glimpse of somebody he knows from his past before he even joined IMF. So before he became like Ethan Hunt, he had a whole past back then. So it becomes like his brain gets all befuddled. And then the tension rises even more when Benji and the rest of his team find out that there's a bomb in the airport and it might go off. So Benji has to deal with that, but they don't tell Ethan so that he can stay focused on what he's doing, on getting the key. So it's a whole mess in there. And then eventually, at the last second, Grace, Haley Atwell's character, gets the key, steals the key from Ethan Hunt. She makes it on a plane to, I think it was Rome, and Ethan's left with nothing. And he and the team have to evacuate and leave the airport as soon as possible so that way they don't get caught by the Americans. And we kind of get a glimpse into Ethan's past and kind of like something happened between him and another guy. But and this mystery man is who is essentially the main antagonist, the main villain, the one who we're supposed to like not like. He's the one that we kind of see and who we look at, and we kind of get an understanding that he has connections to Ethan from way back then, and he has only appeared up until now. And when initially I was like, oh, so they're going that far back. They're going way, way back, past before the first Mission Impossible, because the first Mission Impossible, we see him on a mission, but we don't know how he got to join the IMF. He was just a part of the IMF already. So essentially before the first movie, we kind of get a glimpse of like what he was doing and where he was at in his, in his life. So, and I'm not saying like it's a huge reveal. It's just kind of like somebody dies, and Ethan's kind of like distraught by it, and he didn't essentially catch the guy who did it or who caused that. So they go to Rome and they try to catch up with Grace, and because Grace has the key. And because Grace has the key, she has the key, so she has to like hide it, or like what she's trying to do is I think she's trying to get like money. She's going to get a certain amount of money, and she's going to be able to buy her freedom and do whatever she wants. But that's kind of not the case, because she's dealing with life and death here. She's dealing with, countries would kill her for this key, and they're going to. So it's all revolving around this key, and he loses the key, and they go back and forth again between the two of them, to the point where now Gabriel and kind of like his team of like assassins and killers and whatnot, they're also after the key now, because they're both in Rome. So now it's Ethan Hunt and Grace escaping the police. They're escaping the Gabriel and his killers. And one of the killers is named Paris, who's played by Palm. Am I saying that right? Palm Clementoff. She's in Guardians of the Galaxy. She plays Mantis. Oh man, she's a great actress as well in this movie. But she's kind of like the second, number two. She's the one that is going to she's essentially trying to kill Grace and Ethan Hunt to get the key. And it just becomes them trying to evade and avoid them and escape from Rome. And they're doing a bunch of great stuff in Rome. It's very, very fun. So the next step is just, they have to hold on to a piece of the key. They have to get the key. And they already have it. It's just a matter of like, okay, we have it. Now we just have to, survive. We just have to get through all of this. And it becomes a very, Grace does a good job of using her femininity to her works. and then bouncing back and forth. So the car chase happens after he gets the key, but it's all revolving around Grace because Grace has it. She knows where it is, and she knows what she's going to. She can obviously do whatever she wants with it. So now we focus on the car chase. So this car chase throughout Rome, obviously it starts with Grace escaping Ethan. She gets away from him, and then Ethan has to like kind of run and chase her down. So what does Grace do? She does any logical thing, and she steals a police car. Now, she's not a good driver, and that's not and that's not a stereotype against women. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying that like she just can't drive. She's not as coordinated. She's a thief. She can steal anything. She's smart in that aspect. She's got a quick hands. She can take anything. She can pickpocket anybody. She's good in that respect. But she's not qualified in the stunt driving department. So, because of that, she crashes pretty early, and Ethan catches up to her. And when he does, well, she's like, all right, my bad. You want to drive? Do you want to take over? And Ethan starts driving and trying to avoid, and that's when all the chaos starts happening. They're rushed by police. They're rushed by Paris trying to kill them, and it becomes a whole big deal. So in all of this, eventually they get caught by, I don't want to say caught, but they do get trapped. They get trapped by the police and by the person, by Paris trying to kill them. And this like huge armored truck. And because of that, Ethan has to kind of like calm everybody down and figure out a way out of the situation. And he does eventually. He gets out of it and he's like, we got to change cars because now they know what car we're driving. And if we can change cars for just a second, then we can get out of here. And he gets the funniest car. I mean, this is just brilliant. He gets a Fiat. A yellow Fiat, a little Fiat, a small little car. And you think he's going to get like this badass like supercar. You think he's going to get this like nice little, I think it was like a Corvette or something, or like a, it looked nice, a nice sports car, right? But instead he gets this Fiat yellow, and this Fiat does not quit. This Fiat is actually pretty, I was expecting it to be like really slow and like funny, but it's like pretty speedy. It looked like an electric car. Like it looked like, that's kind of what it reminded me of. And then now it's just chase. And mind you, him and Haley Atwell, Grace, are handcuffed, but they're handcuffed in the wrong spots. So if you were going to be handcuffed to somebody, right? Like let's say if you're driving, you want to be handcuffed on your right hand. So that way you can sit naturally. You know what I mean? But he's handcuffed on his left hand. So if he's driving, then they're going to be like cross-armed, and he's going to have to like drive over his hand, and like it's very smart the way that they put it all together, where it's like it's uncomfortable, but he still manages to get it done despite the adversity and the struggle of it. And there's a really funny part where they're like they tip over or they fall over on their head, on the head of the car, right? They crash, they tumble and roll, and then they switch back to where they started with Grace driving, and she doesn't want to drive, so they have to like switch back. It's funny. It's really good. And then eventually they escape. They escape from the train. There's like a train spot, or I guess they crash instead of like no, they escape. They escape at the last moment, and they make it into like this train tunnel. And it's in this tunnel that they crash, and the car is going to get hit, and Grace escapes from her handcuffs. Ethan is left handcuffed to the steering wheel, and he has to like struggle to get out, and he eventually gets out. But it's kind of like he has the steering wheel still handcuffed to his hand. So now he's like stuck with it, and he has to run and hide and figure a way out. And that's when his team picks him up. His team eventually gets him out of there, which is a little convenient. I ain't gonna lie, but it works. It works out, It makes sense to me that they would have like tabs on him or figure out where he is or where he's going, just to keep an eye on him. So anyways, after that, they know that there's going to be a meeting of some sort. There's going to be like a party, or there's going to be like a place where they're going to meet up. And because they're going to meet up, they have to conjure a deal with the girl in the last movie. I forget her name. Oh my goodness. Anyway, she's kind of like a arms dealer. She deals on the black market. So she does explosive, guns, weapons, whatever you name it, right? She's not a good guy, but she's also like not the evil person. Like she just wants to make money. She'll sell whatever. She'll buy whatever, whatever gets her the most money, or whatever she can sell to the highest bidder. So this key is up for grabs. So because of this key, right? Grace, Ethan, and Ilsa have to meet up with her to sell the key to the one who wants to buy it, who has the other half of the key. And the other person who has the other half of the key is none other than Gabriel, and he wants the other half. And essentially, we come to find out that, two things. First, Ethan and Ilsa, Benji and Luther, they're the team again. They're the team, all right? And Ilsa goes with Ethan to the party to get Grace and meet Gabriel, and he conjures up the whole deal. So because of that, Gabriel is already 10 steps ahead because he has the AI on his side. I forget the name of the AI. I think it has like a specific name, but I don't remember what it is. But anyways, essentially this AI predicts everything. It predicted that Ethan was going to get the key. It predicted that he was going to set up the deal with the arms dealer and with Gabriel there, and that he was going to bring Ilsa, and that Grace was going to be there as well. And so everything is kind of setting up exactly as it's determined for Gabriel, and it's saying that he's going to get the key the next day on the train going somewhere. I don't remember where, but that's how it's all playing out. It's going to be and Grace or Ilsa is going to die. One of them is going to die. But we, the audience, don't know. It's just a opportunity of chance. So, with all of that added to the mix, it becomes it gets very tense because everybody's just trying to be in their interest. Everybody's trying to figure it out. And it becomes a mind game of like trying to deter people's actions, right? Don't kill her and don't kill her. So Ethan Hunt wants to save Grace and he wants to save Ilsa, but somebody's going to die because that's what the AI has already computed. So it becomes a big toss and turn of like, who's it going to be? How's it going to happen? Why would it happen? And if it does happen, it's not going to be good. So essentially, the way that it works is Ethan has to protect... he has to get the keys, okay? And one of the keys is on one of the bodyguards that Grace kind of slipped into his pocket. And then, obviously, Gabriel has the other key. So, what happens is Ethan has to get the key, right? Once he gets the key, he has to save Grace and Elsa from being killed by Gabriel. So, Grace kind of gets the key. She gets the key back from the bodyguard that she took it from, and she runs and escapes. And then Gabriel goes after Grace. But then in the chaos, Ethan Hunt is fighting all of the bodyguards and whatnot, and Ilsa goes and runs after Gabriel and Grace, trying to stop him. And that's when trouble comes up. So now Ethan's behind after fighting everybody, and he has to run to save Ilsa and Grace from being killed by Gabriel. But along the way, he gets tricked by the AI into following different directions. It literally copies Benji's voice, Luther's voice. It copies their voice, so that way he thinks it's them giving him directions towards Ilsa and Gabriel when it's taking him on a completely different route. It's not even towards them. So he goes on this random run throughout the city, and he doesn't actually catch up to them in time. He gets stopped by Paris and another guy trying to kill him, and he fights them, and he lets them both live. He doesn't kill them, or at least the girl, at least Paris lives. So he runs and runs and runs, and he finds, sadly, Ilsa Faust dead. And that hurt my soul, because she was such a, I'm not going to say she was like such a pivotal point. Like, she caused a lot of problems, don't get me wrong. And she was, she kept getting herself into trouble. What can a person that can only do so much for you, right? I settled all of your debts. I got you free from the man burdening you down. You're capable of doing so much great stuff, but instead you don't, you get yourself into even more trouble. Like, it's hard to save you when you're, constantly getting yourself ruining your life here. So, but her dying was really sad, especially because I felt like, I'm not going to say it's the way that her character had to go, but it's kind of the direction we felt like she was going to go, right? Like, she's been playing with life and death for so long that it feels like, it felt like it was bound to happen. It was going to happen because she just, I don't know, she just couldn't live a peaceful life. She couldn't avoid trouble. And so her death is sad. And especially because at the beginning of the movie, they pretended that she already died. So it was like a double fake. So she dies in the beginning. Oh, well, actually, she's alive. And then they kill her again. I was just like, oh, man, dude. It was a bit sad, that's all. And I'm sad to see Rebecca Ferguson go, especially because we have such built-up trust with her. And she's somebody who cares for Ethan and that Ethan cares for. I think that I just think that's just a waste of a character there. And another female lead. Because there's, not a lot of them. But anyways. Essentially, the way that it works now is Grace is alive and she joins the crew. She joins the team. Not officially an IMF agent, but she's tagging along to get the other half of the key back. Or, I think she already... No, to get the other half of the key back. So the way that it's going to work is they have to get on the train, but something happens and Ethan can't be on the train with Grace. But Grace is going to be in costume. And because Grace is going to be in costume, she's going to be dressed up as the arms dealer from earlier. So she's going to be playing as somebody else. So she's not going to have Ethan there, and Ethan has to essentially chase the train and then get onto the train. And that's where we get the big stunt. The big stunt where he drives a motorcycle off of a cliff, and then he skydives down onto the train, or more like through the train. He crashes into the train eventually. And in between Ethan getting on the train and Grace being on the train impersonating somebody else, a lot happens. Grace is trying to impersonate this person and get the key back, or like sell the key or whatnot. And then once that happens, a bunch of chaos ensues. She has to first knock out the real arms dealer, and then she has to portray somebody else. And then once she portrays somebody else, she has to talk to this person and that person. And she has to go through all these back and forths on the train. And it raises the tension, because the longer Ethan takes to get there, the more and more story he's left out of the dark of, and the less he's able to help Grace get through all of this and get the keys. And eventually he crashes through and he gets the keys, but Gabriel gets them first. And now it's about Ethan versus Gabriel, and they get a final fight on the train. Very reminiscent of the first Mission Impossible movie. And they fight. And again, the American CIA people are coming through on the train, and they're just being idiots. They don't understand the situation. They don't know who's good and bad, but they just know that everything that's going to happen is like they have to get Ethan Hunt. That's all they know. That's, they're not trained to think for themselves. Even though the one actor, the one agent that's like with the Americans, he's kind of like, what if he's the good guy? And then the other guy's like, that's absurd. He can't be right so many times. And he's like, well, what if he was? What if he had to step outside of what he thinks is right? And in the end, there's an amazing train crash. I mean, they fight. Gabriel escapes. There's a train crash. Ethan and Grace have to escape car by car, avoiding death by falling off of the train and off of the bridge. And then Ethan has to escape by parachute. And then Grace gets recruited to the IMF essentially, and she accepts the choice of being a part of the IMF. And that's where the movie ends. Oh, and Ethan gets the keys. He steals the keys from Gabriel. And now we get to the next part of the movie. And the next part of the movie involves getting the thing to control the AI, or like a bomb or whatever. So yeah, and that was at the beginning of the movie on the submarine. So it's at the bottom of the ocean somewhere. So, the movie ends it's a very satisfying ending. They accomplish their mission, but then there's another mission. So it's part 1 of 2. And I like that. I like that they did that well. They didn't do it where it was like cliffhanger and then the next movie. You know what I mean? Because that's how I felt with the Across the Spider-Verse. And so now we have to wait however long to release the next movie, because it's gonna take some time. That level of animation takes time. So anyways, that was Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Great movie. I hope you guys watch it. I hope you guys like this episode, and I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.